So I'm here with Christopher J. Moore. He holds 2 BA degrees in psychology and film and a master's in screenwriting from California State University, Northridge. His professional career began in 2000 when he won the Nickelodeon Screenwriting Fellowship. Since then, he has written for several major producers in Hollywood. He has sold screenplays and written for hit television shows, one of which ended up the highest rated comedy series in cable television history, winning NAACP Image Awards for Best TV Comedy Series 2 years in a row. He has written his first YA novel, The Switch Family, which is the first of a series and is the author of 3 best-selling novels, God's Child, Waiting for Mr. Right, and The 5 Steps of Mr. Washington. And he recently released his book, Justifiable. How you doing today?
Good, all good, definitely. How's everything with you?
Man, excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I really enjoyed speaking with you the last time, and we didn't get a chance to discuss your new book, Justifiable. That wasn't the original title. What were you going to call it initially?
Originally, it was called Open Carry. And it's interesting because the screenplay, because I have the screenplay to it, I got a team of producers that are working on getting the movie made, and we got an A-list actor attached to it. I can't say his name at this point, but we're super excited about this becoming a film. But to me, the book, for the writer, the book is always your baby. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm most excited about. Absolutely.
Definitely. How important is it to have A-list talent attached to a project? Does that make it easier?
It helps. It helps, but ultimately, when it comes to a movie, you're still trying to get people to put in millions of dollars to make a film. You know what I mean? So there's always some kind of difficulty when it comes to that. It's just hard to get any film made. And you add black film to it, it just makes it that much more difficult a lot of times, you know what I mean? So, it's an uphill journey, but I think any writer will tell you, well, no matter what their color is, it's just hard to get any movie made. So yeah, absolutely. It helps, but it's tough. Yeah.
The book Justifiable, it's about a father who's put in a life or death situation at his teenage daughter's pool party by a police officer who basically loses control and is harming his baby girl in front of their home. So he does the only thing he can do. He protects her by any means necessary. Shots are fired. And facing a standoff with the entire police force, the anguished father does everything he can, to save his family. That's a powerful synopsis and stuff, everything. Can you talk about the inspiration behind it?
The inspiration was a lot of things, man. It's what, African Americans go through in the Black community, every day when it comes to our relationships with police officers. It's, from the Rodney King, and I'm from LA, born and raised, and, from all the different incidents that happened over the years. But one of the things that really kind of inspired me to tell a story like this was it was an incident in Texas, in McKinney, Texas, and Dajaria Becton was her name, and it was just this horrible, situation with where you see this young teen, and my daughter was about the same age, and it just almost, it brought me to tears, because I thought to myself, if I was in that position, if I was in that situation and that was my daughter, I probably would have died. You know what I mean? Because I couldn't have just sat there and just said, "Oh, my baby, get off." At some point, you have to protect your child by any means necessary. And I think any parent would feel that same way. So, it was one of the things that inspired me and just really kind of was heavy on my heart. And then, another incident, another one. And, we went over the Mike Brown who else? Eric Gardner, Sandra Bland, and all those things just inspired me to just tell a story about police brutality. Philando Castro, that how heartbreaking was that? Trayvon Martin, all these different incidents with people who are just trying to get home, you know what I mean, and just trying to go to work and trying to live their lives, let something so basic, and innocuous as a a stop by the police, whether it's a tail light or maybe you didn't make a complete stop at a stop sign, whatever, escalate until somebody gets killed behind of it. And it's just, I get flustered just talking about it, you know what I mean? Because
no, it's a frustrating thing, specifically being African American. And I remember like living in Los Angeles, and I was like really stunned by like, how the police interact with, African American men, and violate their rights. It just seems like, and stuff that is very commonplace. I think Louis Gossett Jr., I went to go see him speak one time at the New York Film Academy. And he was talking about like, one of his first interactions in Los Angeles was he was chained to a tree for, hours. They just left him like chained to a tree. This is like when he first came from New York to Los Angeles. And I've experienced some of those things like being in Beverly Hills. And like I was going to nursing school, and you have to carry all these books, and they stopped me and stuff and everything because they said like I was a burglary suspect, and
yes.
Kept me for hours and stuff and everything, searching my bags. Is just books in here, or being stopped at the LAX airport and stuff and everything, like and I've witnessed a lot of like injustices, specifically being an African American man interacting with the police in Los Angeles. And I know that it's real. And a lot of times, you see like these conservative talking heads, and they make it seem like racism doesn't really exist. But 13% of the U.S. population accounts for 27% of those who are fatally shot and killed by the police. So how can we change this and stop this this problem?
One of the things that one of the reasons why I wrote this book, because it's not, I'm not trying to be a part of the problem, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to be a part of the solution, and my intentions were to open people's eyes to what's been going on in this country, and what continues to go on in this country is that, like any job, like the person making French fries at McDonald's, there are good people and there are bad people, and what we have to do is recognize when someone's not only bad at their job, but when they're just not good people. What we saw with George Floyd, was an example of pure evil, and that's an extreme, and it's so easy when you give somebody a license to do whatever they want to do to somebody, violate their rights, and even ultimately kill them, for nothing, because you didn't like their attitude, because they didn't show enough respect, all these different things, and it results in the death, of a person, it's the thing that we have to stop, we have to, get police officers on our side to be able to say, forget that whole blue thing, you know what I mean? Because we know we have, if I see a police officer wrestling with a guy on the street, I want to be able to go help the police officer and know that he's in the right, and that just have an idea that 9 times out of 10 he's in the right, not he could be right. Who knows? Maybe I should get involved. You know what I mean? Because it's we got to have more faith in our police officers, and they got to realize that you have to hold your peers accountable. If you don't hold your peers accountable, then we have no faith in you. If you act like there's nothing to see and nothing wrong, and you're sitting up there while your partner is going to work on a young man or or violating his rights or whatever, and you're complicit with it, then that's a problem, you know. And I can tell you when I wrote this book over, I don't know, what, 6-year, 7-year process, you know, and it's a short book, you know, but I wrote it, just kept writing it, rewriting it, and changing things, and because, you know, you learn more, and there was always some new form of some ridiculous incidents of unwarranted violence amongst an innocent person. And you know, it was to the point I would start working on it, and it would get so painful, it's like I just needed a break. You know what I mean? Because anybody that knows me knows I'm an optimistic person. I like to be happy in life, and live life to the fullest, not be in a sense of just, why can't people see what Black people see clear as day? You know, with the exception of a few maybe, you know, who don't have the same experiences that we have, or, you know, who are trying to stay in the good graces of the people in their jobs maybe, or whatever. But it really is frustrating, you know. But like I said, I wrote this book out of love, and I wrote it to inspire us to do better, because we can do better. Black people can do better, white people can do better, everybody can do better.
That's an incredible message. You mentioned earlier accountability. I feel like as a writer, you know, you have to hold yourself accountable. You know, you talk about writing a book over a period of, 6 years. You know, what is your writing process like? What was it like for Justifiable?
Well, this is the thing. As you know, I wrote End of the Road. I'm a screenwriter. You know, I write television. So, you know, I'm writing other things. So when it comes to my books, typically I just keep picking and poking at it, and keep, you know, a chapter here and a chapter there. And then I look up and I have something, you know. And it was the same thing with this. But this, you know, like I said, you know, we're trying to get the movie made, script's done, you know what I mean? You know, so I have the screenplay in this. So, you know, I'm always just continuing to work on it. Not I tend to work on multiple projects at the same time, because you never know where jobs are going to come from, and things like that. But sometimes I would get inspired by a conversation, you know, maybe talking to somebody with a different point of view. Sometimes I would get inspired by something I saw, you know, on the news, or read it in the paper. Like, you know, I feel like I've just been a sponge to everything that this country has been going through. You know, when the George Floyd incident happened, you know, it was during scary times. We were in the middle of COVID, and, you know, but I could, you know, me and my whole family, we went out, and we protested, and we did that walk, you know what I mean? Because it just felt so important. It was so much, it was so bigger than us. You know what I mean? It was just, you know, but me as a writer, you know, you go, well, what can I do besides protest? What can I do? You know, and that for me was, keep working on this book, keep working on the script, you know, and and ultimately you look up and you're like, okay, I got something, you know.
For sure. What kind of research did you do for the book, and how long did you spend researching before beginning the book?
You know, I did so much research when it comes to just watching interaction with police officers, because that to me was like the core, you know, thing about the book. Watching the interaction with the police officers, watching when the police officers was wrong, watching when they were right, you know, watching when people who got pulled over, you know, were wrong, watching when they were right, you know, and you know, just kind of taking it all in, and you know, the story, you know, it's not like it's a true story, you know, but what it is it can be a true story. It's gonna be somebody's true story if we don't change things the way things are, you know. Yeah, it's inevitable, you know. It's like punching somebody at school every day because you feel like it, eventually somebody's going to punch you back. You know what I mean? Like, you know, whether it's happened not or not, you know, somebody's gonna hit back. And you know, it's kind of like you know, I think if we can all kind of come together and have a common goal to say, you know, we all can do better. And like I said before, people, you know, can accept the criticism, you know, and then, you know, realize that, okay, we can do better and this isn't acceptable, instead of they need to submit, they need to bow down, I'm the law. That mentality just not going to work. You know, it doesn't work. You know, it's just going to get more people hurt, you know, and ultimately, hopefully not, you know, hopefully not killed, but that's what happens, you know. And it's so funny when, you know, sometimes I would write and work on the story, I would get to a point where I go, okay, as soon as I felt like things were calm and I thought, maybe I don't need to write this book, boom, like clockwork, boom, another person, boom, another incident. You know, there'll be another incident after this interview. Just watch. You know, it can't help it. You know, one thing that I talk about in my book is some of these cops are, you know, young men. And when you're young men, you're full of testosterone, you're full of, you know, it's why they send young men to war and not older men. You know what I mean? Because older men might say, hey, send them a letter. Let's talk this out before we get to shooting each other. You know what I mean? Young men go over there and they're amped, they're fired up, they're ready for war. You know, and you know, I used to play football. I know how it feels to be fired up and young. You know what I mean? So when you give somebody like that, white, black, any color, okay, and they have that fired up mentality, and you send them off into the world to police citizens, they tend to, sometimes, if they're not trained properly, to do their job with a certain amount of aggression that's rude, that's disrespectful. You know, like I have a thing in my book where I talk about the most disrespectful something that a police officer can ask is another grown man, where is he coming from? Where is he going? You know, because maybe I'm not in the neighborhood. Who do I know around here? It's none of your business. I'm free. You know what I'm saying? It's none of your business where I'm going, where I'm coming from, especially if it's because I have a taillight out. You know what I mean? You know, there are questions that police officers ask, you know, when that they shouldn't be asking somebody for an infraction of law. You know what I mean? You know, these are questions for criminals. You know, your approach, you know, I've seen, you know, and all you got to do is go on YouTube and just look up police
100%.
brutality, and, you know.
You're preaching to the choir. I'm sure, like, you know, me and most of my audience definitely agree with you. You bring up some great points. I was having a conversation earlier with my friend, the amazing Kreskin, and he was talking about, you know, the difficulty for police officers because of, like, you know, having to make split-second decisions. When you're writing this book, were you concerned at all, like, you know, about the ethics of, you know, portraying the police, you know, fairly?
And you know what? If you read the book, that's definitely what I tried to do. Of course, all police officers aren't bad. In my book, of course they're not. There's some good ones, absolutely. You know what I mean? But there are also some that are complicit, and there are some that are bad. You know what I mean? And you know, like anything, you have to recognize that, okay, this is a bad cop. He doesn't need this. He shouldn't have this job. The stakes are too high. You know what I mean? I saw an incident where a grandmother was driving on the freeway in a funeral, but I guess she got kind of lost or whatever, and she was driving. The police were pulled her over. She's thinking she's part of a funeral thing, is still part of it, or where they pull her over, and because she didn't pull over immediately, they got her, dragged her out, slammed her, they broke her, all kind of different stuff. And they had no empathy for this older woman. She's clearly an older woman. At the point of coming up and seeing what the situation is, calm down,
Yeah.
take a step back. If you feel so scared that you need to put your hand on your gun for a grandmother, then do so, but step back and assess the situation. Not break an old lady's arm and wrist and tear her down, and you got her laid out on the ground with it's common sense, and a lot of police officers, have good common sense, and some of them don't. And we're talking about addressing the ones that don't. And that's what to me is important. And also people got to realize that it's amazing how some people who aren't of color can go shoot up in a church, shoot up 20 people, and they get arrested without a scratch. It's amazing. But you might not make it because you got a taillight that went out. There's got to be a sense of, okay, we're not doing something wrong. I mean, something right. We need to change some things. And I'm sure a lot of police departments and a lot of people have made those adjustments, you know what I mean? But obviously more police officers, more policemen, police women need to do that, because the stakes, like I said, are just too high.
Yeah, you make some valid points and stuff, everything. You hear the story of Dylan Roof when he was arrested and they took him to Burger King, and stuff,
Right.
everything, kind of like they're rewarding, his horrible behavior. And
Yeah.
you obviously have, like, emotions, like, involved with this story, because you talked about how, like, you had to stop writing at times because, like, like, events that were occurring in the real world and stuff, everything made it difficult for you to write. So what was the hardest scene to write in the book?
The hardest scene was I would say it's almost like the inciting incident. It's one of the things that kicks it off. It's like where his daughter is being thrown down, on the ground, and similar to kind of what happened with the incident in Texas, in McKinney, and it that was the hardest to me, because like I said, I have a daughter. At that time she was that age, and I thought to myself, because the reason why initially it was called open carry was because that was an open carry state. So if a dad was using was carrying his gun, because that was his right by law, to carry a gun, and his daughter, his baby, is on the ground with a cop that's lost control, what do you do? What do you do? And at that point, I thought, oh my God, I would have had to die because, of one ignorant cop's. That's why I said the stakes are too high. And the police officers would have came and saw me, with my gun out, and rightfully so, doing their job, would have shot me and killed me. And they would have been in the right, because they're supposed to have faith that their officer has to be in the right. You know what I mean? So it's such a catch-22, because they would have been doing their job to come and shoot me down, because I'm sitting up here, trying to protect my daughter. But they don't know what's going on. They have no clue. They're just showing up. And you see somebody, trying to defend themselves, but to them, you would obviously look like the aggressor. I mean, if I was a cop and I showed up and I saw, a black father with his gun drawn on a police officer, my automatic instinct would be to shoot the black guy protecting his daughter, because I wouldn't know any different. I'm protecting, I'm doing my job, So that's what made it such an interesting dilemma for me. And it was like, oh my God, you're putting, somebody, and it's so funny. If you watch the video with the young lady, you see parents by instinct that are like trying to almost get the officer off of her just out of instinct, of saving a child. Kind of like how, watching George Floyd, if anybody would have jumped in and tried to stop that officer from executing George Floyd, the other officers would have been in absolute right to shoot them dead. And they knew that. And that's why, all those bystanders who kept saying, you're killing them, you stop, all that stuff, they couldn't do anything but just stand by, and that's, to me, what was the most heartbreaking thing. You just kind of wish, like, I wish somebody could have just dove on the guy or maybe pulled him off or something, but by doing that would have been suicide. Because if he didn't shoot you himself, one of his other officers backing him up would have.
Right. Or man, you bring up some really amazing points, and it makes me think about, like, some of the injustices occurred, situations and stuff, everything, like, in Wisconsin with Jacob Blake. And you think about, like, when police show up to these situations sometimes, and they're supposed to be de-escalating the situations, but they escalate and it goes to 10 when it didn't even have to necessarily go that way. The person could have, been calmed down if, they had listened and empathized or asked questions. And, a lot of times, the police just come in and they assume, they make assumptions and stuff, everything. And you see this all the time in the news. I read a story like months ago where it was this guy who was like watering, his plants. Like, how much change do you think needs to happen, like, in this country? Like, how bad of a problem is this?
I think it's like anything. Until we recognize the problem, how are we going to ever solve the problem if we don't recognize that there is a problem? If we just keep saying, the police are right, even when we know they're wrong, if we just keep making excuses for bad behavior, all it does is it emboldens the bad behavior. That's what it does. If I'm a bad kid and I like going to school and slap the heck out of somebody and nothing happens, eventually I'm gonna be kicking them too. I'm gonna be slapping and kicking. You embolden. There are bad people in this world, and they have all kind of jobs. They're bad teachers. They're bad. Trust me. There's a chef somewhere spitting in somebody's food right now. Just, they're bad people in this world, and like any job, there's bad officers. And what we need is the good officers to step up and say, not on my watch. I'm here for the people, not to stand by and watch you do something unlawful. And something that could possibly get someone killed. I'm just tired of it. It's so funny, and this is nothing new. What I'm saying? It's only new because we got these cell phones. What I mean? But this is something that the way I judge it too. If you go back and you watch the comedians, because I love comedians. Comedians are like the journalists in our society. If you go all the way back to whether it's Dick Gregory, whether it's Richard Pryor, they all got a bit on, the police just beating people up and, stop me for no reason. And, they're not just making this stuff up, but now, we got phones and people are recording it, and, we just watch police officers, follow the laws when they want, and then don't follow the law when they don't want. And that, to me, has to stop. You have to be a bigger person. You have to be a bigger person when you get in these little tit for tats, over a parking situation, or maybe they were speeding or something like that. That's different. I always say, you'll never catch me out there protesting for somebody, who was treated roughly, who came out of a bank with a mask on and a gun. You know what I'm saying? No matter what color they are. You know what I mean?
You
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 know.
you bring up some great points, and it reminds me of this line is one of my favorite lines in all of film. It's in The Godfather 2, and Michael Corleone, played by Al Pacino, is talking to Kay, and he says, like, my father's just like any man, you know, like a president, or and she says, like, presidents don't have, you know, men killed, and she says, now who's being naive, Kay? And like that's
Right.
and you know, I think
Yeah.
about, you know, the executive branch. You know, we've seen, like, you know, in this country and stuff, everything, a level of corruption that has existed for years prior, but like, you know, like with what Trump has done, even in the Biden administration, you know, there's been allegations of corruption, and some of this can be documented. And I'm wondering,
Right.
like, you know, how that trickles down in society. Do you think there's a problem with morality in society?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you look at what's going on just with in the politics, with politics right now. I mean, you know, people are literally, you know, I think they just I think Trump just said the subpoena that the House sent him. I think he just said, no, I'm not going to do it. You know, it's like some people have to abide by laws and some people don't. You know, could you imagine if if on January 6th, you know, black people were storming the Capitol and
No.
led by brothers with from the Nation of Islam, like, you know, it's like, you know, and that's not even a fair comparison. I'm just saying, in their eyes, you know what I'm saying? Uh, um, you know, black people, you know, it would have been, it would have been a bloodbath,
A
and they know.
100%. The National Guard and stuff would have
Oh,
murdered, you know, hundreds of black people if like something like that were to occur. I mean, I think they send that message to us very clearly. Historically, there's a lot of precedents for it, and even, like, you know, recently through the Trump administration, like, you know, you could talk about, like, you know, the Black Lives Matter protests and stuff and everything. Like, you know, it's just it's just you know, we live in a crazy world. You know, you talked about writing books, like, you know, you, because you write screenplays, you know, you take your time, like you're writing books. I was wondering, how many half finished books do you have?
um, well, I do them one at a time. So, you know, so
Okay.
I'm working on a YA novel that I wrote called The Switch Family. I'm not sure if you mentioned that one. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm okay, and I'm doing the sequel to that. So I'm picking and poking at that at a slow pace. But I'm also, you know, like I said, working on a new screenplay, you know, and you know, something a little fun, and you know, and I just try to keep telling these stories, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm
So
always working.
the Switch Family was your first young adult novel, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And I love that story. And like I said, I got producers that are excited about that one too. So, you know, I'm hoping that that's a film that we can watch, you know. And anybody that's read any of my books, I'm for bringing people together, black, white. I'm for bringing people together because I love good people. You know what I mean? I'm not a fan of bad people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I love good people, and good people come in all colors. You know what I'm saying? You know, and bad people do too. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, one thing that I really kind of wanted to hit home with this book was we have a thing called systemic racism. You know, let's address it. Let's acknowledge it. You know, let's acknowledge, you know, how you know, it's so funny how when you know, writing this book, it opened up my eyes to so many different things. One, even the issues that we have amongst each other, you know, dark skin, you know, versus light skin, you know, that's a problem. And I, in the opening of my book, I talk about that a little bit, and I say, if we can't get past that, you know, dark skin versus light skin, and what's beautiful and what's not, how do we expect, white people to get past that, due to the history in this country. So we all have work to do. You know what I'm saying? We all have work to do. That's a huge problem. I understand. It's almost like, it's a shame that because of the color of your skin, it could be the difference between you getting shot and not. A white guy with a cowboy hat, says, I'm a registered gun owner. And they say, okay, show us your paperwork. And he goes to his pocket, he shows paperwork and goes about his day, is a totally different thing than a black person saying, I'm a registered gun owner. Because at that point, it escalates. It's hand on the gun. It's like, put your hands on the thing. Let me see your paperwork. Well, step out the car. And now, you got somebody saying, well, I got to step out the car. And it escalates. And now they're screaming, and it just escalates. And that's something that needs to change. We have to, try to get past this thing, this thing that, I try to hit, my book's not that long. I tried to hit so many different things in this short book. You know what I'm saying? The book is 32 pages, 132 pages. I mean, it's a short book, but I tried to hit so many different things that we need to kind of get a hold of, because it's like it's so important for us to be able to evolve as a human race. We have to get past this stuff, and if you don't, it's just too dangerous not to. And that's what my book is all about.
Do you read your reviews? That's one question I had for you, because I watched End of the Road, and then I went and read the reviews, and I saw some people who were triggered by some of the content. It seemed like they were a little bit upset and maybe even a little biased about the content and the way characters interact with each other.
Not really. I mean, I've read a couple. It's so interesting though, because when you're in this game, man, it's like filmmaking is such a collaborative thing. It's like I don't feel like the director, they do their thing. People gonna have their opinions. You cannot get caught up in critics. We've got great reviews, and we got some that aren't great. You know what I mean? And that's any movie. And what makes me feel good about it is when I look up my favorite movies and I see, somebody hating on The Godfather. Somebody says the movie Heat sucked, or you're never gonna please anybody. You're never gonna please anybody. So I just kind of go slow and just keep doing my thing and keep writing and keep trying to inspire and pushing, doing what I do, which is tell stories. That's what I do.
So the interview's running out of time. So I'm here with Christopher J. Moore. He is the screenwriter for End of the Road. He also wrote the book Justifiable, which is available on Amazon. Where else can people purchase Justifiable?
You know what? Some of the Barnes and Nobles here and there, but also mostly Amazon. I'm sending everybody to Amazon. That's where I'm trying to get my numbers up. It's so easy. You order off Amazon, it's at your door in 2 or 3 days. But yeah, so that's the way I'm moving with it. Absolutely.
Thank you.